Let's go.
Well, everybody, welcome back to another exciting episode of the Storybox podcast. Today, I'm delighted to welcome a huge inspiration of mine and someone who I have listened to her music for quite some time now. Her name is Lindsey Stirling. Now, for those of you who don't know who Lindsey Stirling is, go on YouTube, search up her stuff. You're bound to find one of her videos that you'll fall in love with. But her music is outstanding. She is a professional multi-platinum selling electronic artist for violin, and she's a multi-talented entertainer as well. Lindsey has not only produced, but she has written numerous songs, one of which she released her latest album last year called Artemis, which outstanding, absolutely outstanding. She also has released a new song with Marco, I believe, called Lose You Now, which I'm sure we'll get into today. Most definitely. Lindsey, welcome so much to the Storybox podcast today.
Thanks for having me, and thank you for the stellar intro. I feel very fancy right now.
You should, because you are fancy, and it's really an honor to have you here. I can't speak highly enough of you and all your work. The sheer emotion that goes into all your music, it's really powerful. So I want to give you credit for that where credit is due. Before we dive into your backstory and how this all got started, I have one question I love asking all my guests at the very start, which is, what does success look like to you?
Man, I feel like that is kind of changed through different phases of my life. I feel like it's always changing, and right now the answer is happiness. Like we all chase all these things that we're chasing because we want happiness. And at the end of the day, sometimes you get lost along the way chasing the thing so much that you forget the entire intent was to make you happy. Like, people chase after love because they think it will make them happy, or fame or success or money. And then somewhere they forget to actually be happy because of the things that they're chasing, that the whole goal in the first place was just to have joy. And so I think, honestly, the truest model of success is just like, is what you're chasing or doing making you happy?
I love that. Two questions coming from that. Firstly, why do you think your version of success has changed for you over time? And what are some of the things that make you happy now compared to before?
I think it's changed because I finally realized that it was just happiness and joy, and so it used to be like I was thinking that the things were what success meant. It was like, what am I focused on right now? That's success. And then I was like, wow, it's actually just whatever thing that can change, but it's like, is it making me find joy? And then sorry, what was the second question?
So
second part
towards happiness right now. So what were some of the things that made you happy before compared to some of the things that make you happy now?
I'm really just learning more and more that it's people, it's connection, it's being connected to the people I love the most. And it's finding ways to connect with even people that I don't know, like those little moments of connections you have, that are even harder to have now at this grocery store, or even like with my fans when I get these moments to connect with them, or my family. I've gotten to spend quite a bit of time, more so than like ever before, with my family this last year. And, it's literally what got me through the year was my family and like just connections with people.
I love that. So speaking about connections with people, who in your life has made the greatest impact, whether it be financially, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, for you?
Oh man, maybe it's this one right here.
Maybe
it's my little dog. No, I'm just kidding. I love her to pieces, but it's not Luna. It's there's your dog. Oh my gosh, what a beautiful dog. Australian Shepherd?
Australian German.
Oh, sorry, Shepherd. German Shepherd.
Yes.
Beautiful dog. Is it so cliche to say my parents? Like,
no,
I think that's, I think the greatest thing anyone could ever do is to be a parent. And it's something that I know will be, it's something I really want in my own life. And I know it will be a huge sacrifice someday, because like my parents sacrificed so much for us kids, and they really inspired us to like go after it and live our dreams and chase the things that we wanted to chase. And they, like when I said I wanted to be a dancing violinist to like electronic music, my parents didn't sit me down and have the talk of like, okay, well, that's not going to put food on the table, Lindsey. Cause I mean, I would be terrified if my child came to me and told me something that outlandish, but instead they were like, well, when's your first show? When can we go? Oh, it's at an open mic night. Awesome. Like my parents were just so supportive, even though I know it sometimes broke their heart to be so supportive. It was terrifying for them. And I'll forever be grateful, because I don't know if I could have done what I've done if I didn't have one or two cheerleaders in my court.
What was it like your very first performance? Do you remember it?
Yes, I do. My very first performance was actually in, I did a pageant to raise money for college to try and win some money. And there were several violinists in this pageant, and they were all playing classical pieces, and we were all about the same skill level. So it was like, oh gosh, it's just going to be down to like what concerto the judges like more, on a given night, And so I thought, well, how could I possibly stand out? So I decided I would play a rock piece, and I was going to write it, and I was going to like kind of jump around and move while I played it. And this was a entirely new concept for me. I was like, will people think this is absolutely ridiculous, or will they love it? I don't know, but it was a risk I was willing to take. Sure enough, I went out there with my little like punky outfit, and I, jumped around the stage to this really poorly recorded rock track that my friends recorded in my basement. And sure enough, not only did I end up like winning the thing, but I remember on stage after I finished the song, like wondering, I wasn't sure how people were going to react. People were smiling, they were clapping, they were like, oh, this is so interesting. And it was the first time I really fell in love with performing, because I thought I didn't just impress, I entertained in a way that felt so true to me, which before that, the violin had never felt 100% true to me. It was something I did, but now it was like, oh my gosh, I just like Lindsey-ified something I love. And I was like, how will I find a way to do this with my life again? The pageant was over, but how can I do this again? That was fun.
So speaking about doing it again, what sort of keeps you doing what you're doing now? What keeps that drive and that hunger and that passion alive for you?
I think, there's like that twofold thing. You have to do things that suit your audience for sure. And, think about your audience, but also you got to think about yourself. Like what makes me excited? My last album, for example, Artemis, it was my fifth studio album. And so I was like, how am I going to make this so fresh and new, again, for me as a writer going in. And, one, it's finding your muse, your inspiration, but also I decided I would write a comic book along with this album to like approach writing from a different perspective. I was writing the story of actual characters. And as I wrote the comic book, I would write the music, and I did it in tandem. And, so like I knew I wasn't going to make a mint off selling my comic book. It was a very niche audience for me. However, it enlivened, is that even a word? I don't know, but it just like got me really excited to write in a different way. And it made making the music videos feel so fresh and new, because I was bringing these characters to life. I mean, sometimes it's like, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You just have to like add an element to it. You just have to like tweak it slightly, like change by like 1 degree what you're doing. And it kind of makes it all fresh again.
You're very, very creative, I have to say. Like your albums are outstanding. I've listened to each and every one of them, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Bit of a fun fact there. And I'm always curious by people's creative process. Like music is very personal to a lot of people. Like they go through certain experiences in life, and then they often write about it as an outlet to get it out of their system. I don't know if that's happened for you, but for me, I used to do it through film, through speaking to people, like this kind of stuff. I used to find a creative outlet. So I'm curious, what is your creative process?
It honestly has kind of depend album per album, because it's kind of like where I'm at. And I remember my first album was just like so exciting, because it was like just throw everything on the paper that's been like in my mind, and like I was discovering a brand new style, and I was trying really writing for the first time. And so it was just kind of like, plop, and it like stuck. And it's funny. I didn't even know how albums were made enough to know that most people write and write and write and write. They find like the best songs out of like 100. I wrote 12 songs and I released 12 songs. Like it's kind of hilarious to me. And it's just kind of funny that when you don't know how something is supposed to be done, you're almost like brilliantly ignorant in a way that allows. And also, I was paying someone for every song before I released them. Like, and so I couldn't afford to do a bad song because I didn't have money, and I'd pay him before we made the song. So it's not like I could just be like, oh, that song sucked. It was like, oh, this song is awful. I have to find a way to make it good because I paid for it, and I was a college student at the time. So anyways, that was the process of the first album. And then it's changed from there. Like my album Brave Enough was inspired by loss and digging super deep on like experiences of losing some of the most important people in my life to death. And so that was a very cathartic experience, kind of like what you expressed, of just like feeling raw emotion and then going on tour and getting to express it every night and heal in that way. And then, Artemis was more inspired by like a concept and like characters and, a story, so I really do enjoy like, where am I at in life? And I always think about that before I write an album or start a creative process. Like, what do I feel? What do I want to share? Like, what stage am I? Okay. And then it takes a little bit of soul searching to find that stage. And then once I find it, all right, let's either dig deep, let's create, like whatever it may be.
Artemis, that album, by the way, seems more like it's a fantasy, more like you're in a different world almost, which I honestly appreciated. But then it kind of brings you back to reality or at the same time, which I think was very powerful. And I love how you did that. I'm curious, like with music and everything like that, do you ever worry that you're going to run out of ideas for songs?
Absolutely. I do. I mean, maybe some people don't. I do. Like every time I go to write a new album, I'm like, do I have another song in me? Do I have like 13 new songs in me? I don't know. Like, let's hope so. And so far, so good. And I've thought that about like music videos as well. Like, am I going to run out of ideas of how to like dance around and play the violin and new moves and new costumes and new concepts? And, again, it's so far so good. And I think it kind of just comes back to like the courage to sit there and think of bad ideas over and over and over again, or create bad songs and realize that doesn't mean you're at the end of your bucket. It doesn't mean that you've run dry. It just means that you got to persevere through the like creating crap, and give yourself permission to create art that you're not proud of until you're able to like find the stuff that you are proud of. Because at least that's my process, not, and I know no writer writes brilliant stuff every time, so I think it's just being willing to sit through that enough times to find the nuggets.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious, you mentioned being proud of your work there for a moment. So I'm curious about what you think is your greatest achievement and why.
Oh man, my greatest achievement. That's a really good question. I think honestly, my greatest achievement might be like some of the early days, because that's when it took like so much courage and like so much of just like believing in myself truly. Like, like I didn't have a team around me telling me that I could do it and there to be my backbone. I didn't have fans telling me they loved me. Like I literally just had to like buckle up and show up and hope that someone else showed up too, to like those first shows. Like, I remember playing like, like I said, open mic nights and going to like colleges to play in their cafeterias. And I remember you leave feeling pretty like, well, that was thankless. Like no one was even listening to me, like, or maybe embarrassing, like, like whatever those emotions were. I'm pretty darn proud of myself that I got back up every time. And I remember when I did my first ticketed show, I don't think I've ever been as proud in my whole life as I was when I stood up in front of, I think 300 people. And I couldn't believe they all knew my songs. Like I'd be like, this song is called Spontaneous Me. And they were like, oh, they cheer. And I was like, they know my song. Wow. I'd only performed in front of people who Had no idea who I was before that. And so I just remember when that night was over, like being like, did that just happen? And I couldn't believe it. And I'd worked so hard to get there. I don't think anything will be as like much of an accomplishment as that first little show.
And speaking about challenges that you've had to overcome, you overcame a pretty horrendous challenge, I guess you could say, on a live stage that millions of people would have seen. I guess everyone listening knows what I'm talking about. But going from that challenge, did you think that your career in music was going to be over after that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I went on to America's Got Talent, and they're on those reality shows. They're very good at kind of like pumping you up. It's reality TV. They got to get that emotion out of these characters, and that aren't actors, but you are the characters of a TV show. So, they fill you with a lot of drama and like make or break type scenarios. This is your make or break moment. This could change your life. And so when I went out there for my make or break moment, and I walked off like devastated and it was humiliating. Like anybody who watches that video is just like, ooh, it's cringeworthy. The things they said to me, and it was bad. And I remember being like, I could never get on a stage again after that. Like, nope. I mean, I cried for hours after I walked off that stage, literally till I couldn't cry anymore. And, and was like, well, that was okay, we're done. Because up to that point, I had been going for a while. I'd been playing these like shows that I was talking about before. And, I was like, well, if this wasn't going to do it for me, then what could? And I remember though, there's like your gut. I am such a big believer in trusting that inner voice, which I refer to as my instinct and gut, but also God. I think that God directs us a ton. For anyone that believes in that, or whether you call it the universe, whatever, there is a guiding force that will let you know if something is right, and it will pull at your heart. And I could not deny that after that experience, after I paused for a moment and healed, a couple months later, I was like, it's not over. I like knew it in my heart. You got to get up on that stage again. You got to go return to the open mic night. You got to keep, figuring it out. And it was, hard to do so. It was painful. It was scary, but gosh, one thing led to the next. It wasn't my next plan that worked or the next one. I remember I went to Vegas and handed out DVDs to like talent agencies. I contacted managers. Like I did all these things. I read books on how to make it in the music industry. And finally, I discovered YouTube, which is just ironic because that wasn't even a thing back then. It wasn't like, it was barely emerging. So it wasn't like a valuable thing yet. And you just never know what's going to be your make or break. You can think, you can go up there and walk right up to it and stare it in the face and you think it's your moment. But like, I believe strongly that life is kind actually, and that it will give you second, third, fourth, fifth chances at things. You've never blown the greatest moment of your life, and you never know what that actually is going to be.
You were persistent in knowing what you actually wanted, and you went after it until you got it. So I appreciate that. It's very, like I said in the beginning, very inspirational. Very, very inspirational.
Well, thank you.
Because I know what it's like firsthand, because I'm in the process of still building this. So I can appreciate being at the ground level, people sort of not really believing in you, and you got a few people that do believe in you, like yourself, for example, that believed in me enough to speak to you today. So all that stuff, like I don't take it for granted, and I don't think you do either. And I love how you mentioned God there for a moment, because I do believe in God. I am a person of faith, which I, again, once again, appreciate even more about you. How you're in this space, I guess the music space, and you still hold true to your faith and believing in God, which is very admirable. So hold on to that. Two more final questions for you, if you don't mind. I could speak to you for ages, I promise you. That's no lie. But your new song, Lose You Now, what was the idea behind that? What does it mean to you?
Oh, well, that's a perfect segue coming out of faith, because it's a song kind of like rooted in a lot of my faith. And, I wrote Guardian, which is kind of the origin of the song Lose You Now. It was an instrumental song that was on my Artemis album. And Guardian was kind of written about guardian angels and about the fact that, like, I believe that I've got angels surrounding me all the time. And, I really loved this idea, especially after I lost people, because I've always believed in angels. I've always believed in another side. But suddenly I was like, oh my gosh, I know people over there now. And it just made it all seem more, not real, but like tangible to me and relatable. And so I just, all the time, I ask my guardians for help, my angels. And, now it's like, who knows who else they are, but I know it's my best friend and my dad, and I ask them for help all the time. And I just like sometimes imagine myself walking through life with these powerful angels surrounding me and helping me and guiding me. And it gives me a lot of comfort to like face challenges, to face decisions, to go into things I'm afraid of. Like I'm walking in with not just my knowledge and my preparation, but like power from the other side. And that gives me a lot of comfort. So, but I couldn't ever put it into words. So that's why Guardian was an instrumental. And then I worked with Mako. He actually wrote the lyrics on his own. Like I actually didn't even know he was working on it. And he sent it to me and I just started bawling because he was able to capture in words the sentiment of what loss now means to me. The fact that it's so hard to lose people. I still have days where I go through grief for sure. But it's like I then get to remind myself that like I don't have to lose them, that they're here with me and they're guiding me and they're giving me strength beyond my own whenever I ask for it.
I love the guardian angels thing because it's funny you should mention that because I was having a conversation with someone 2 days ago about this very thing because I believe the same thing. Like for me, it's my grandfather and my grandmother. Like those two people, I like whenever I go through a challenging time, I always drive to their gravesite and just sit there and just look up. And I'm like, we used to call him Grandy. So Grandy, I need your help. And he just like, I just have this incredible sense of peace. So I really do believe in guardian angels and however you want to put a face to them or not, like that is very powerful. And your song, Lose You Now, I encourage people. It's not just me like trying to sell it. This is me like actually saying, listen to the song because it is a beautiful song and it will move you like in many ways.
Oh, thank you.
Lindsey, my final question for you is my all-time favorite question. I want you to imagine with me, it's a hypothetical one, but just imagine with me for a moment that you've been able to reach the age of 100. Your friends have decided to put together a film for you of everything you've ever said and everything you've ever done. Don't ask me how they got it all. For the sake of argument, we'll call it magic. But they've been able to get it and show it to you on your 100th birthday. What do you want that film to say and to show about your life?
Oh, that's such a good question. It's a great question to gauge, like, how do you want to live, I would hope that there would be so much laughter, I hope that there'll be, I would love to be the kind, I am that, I am the person today, but I really hope that through my life, I'm the kind of person that brings joy to people. I hope that I always remember to serve, and like I have some friends that just are so good at seeing the needs of other people and instantaneously don't even think about it. They'll act on that. And it's something that I am trying to become more of. And so that's what I would want more than anything is people to see laughter and kindness.
I love that. Lindsey, where can people connect with you, find you? And I don't think it's really hard. Just searching your name. But where do you want people to go the most?
Oh man, go visit me at YouTube. That's my favorite place of the internet where I reside, my persona. But again, my name's Lindsey Stirling and you can find me anywhere. So I really enjoyed our conversation today. Thank you so much for your really insightful questions. And the conversation was great.
I did mean it that I could speak to you for ages. I had so many more questions for you. But Lindsey, thank you so much for the time that you gave me today and for coming on the Storybox podcast.
Absolutely. Well, have a good one.